Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Disney Plus wants to know, are you ready? For Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, now streaming on Disney Plus.
Let's do this.
One of the best Marvel movies of all time is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Hey, you weren't listening to me.
I said Thunderbolts, The New Avengers is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Meet the New Avengers.
That's a cool name.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, rated PG-13, now streaming on, you guessed it, Disney Plus.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation news from across the nation for the week of November 24th, 2025. It is Thanksgiving week. It is a festive, exciting week, and we have some stories to bring to you before we break for the holiday. Our lead story this week, Massachusetts new gun laws. We'll bring you the bad and the ugly from the Bay State with Christian Ragasta here momentarily. Little FYI on duck stamp dollars and how the whole duck stamp program works and why you should care. CSF supports forest restoration project on the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. CWD in Arizona in the Southwest. Natural Resources Committee holds hearing on important fisheries bills. And we wrap things up with fall offering exceptional opportunities for anglers in the Great Plains. Before we get to our lead story, a little housekeeping. We are mere days away. Days. Now we can count them days, especially after we get through this holiday break from the NASC Summit in Memphis, Tennessee. So for you folks who have yet to register, now's the time to head to congressionalsportsman.org, go to the summit page. For you folks only, still have the promo going on for the podcast audience only. Get $50 off your registration by using the promo code Birdman, BIRDMAN. Again, that's BIRDMAN, Birdman, in the checkout promo code area to get that discount. We're looking forward to seeing folks in Memphis. It's going to be a great time, packed agenda, some great outdoor activities. So make sure you are registering now. Slots for activities are filling up, and don't want to miss out. So again, at checkout, enter the promo code Birdman, BIRDMAN, for your discount. We look forward to seeing you there. All right, with that housekeeping out of the way. All right, let us turn now to our lead story as we talk about one of our favorite subjects is more gun laws, and not in the best way in Massachusetts. We turn now to assistant manager there in Massachusetts, Christian Ragasta. Christian, thanks for carving out the time and bringing us your reporting.
Thanks for having me, Fred. As you kind of said, I wish we had more exciting and fun news for our friends in Massachusetts, but they've given us what they've given us.
Yeah, so as the audience well knows, and it's been documented on this program as well as our testimony for multiple years now, the rigmarole that went on for a long time and the changing bill number that ended up as Chapter 135 in Massachusetts. One of the most, if not the most egregious gun control omnibus package that has gone through any of the 50 states. And that's saying something, including if you look at California and New York. And in the best Billy Mays way, but wait, there's more. Christian, take us through the more of the fun that Massachusetts has in store for its resident owners of firearms, sportsmen and women, as well as those coming from out of state to enjoy the wilds of the Bay State.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. So as a recovering upstate New Yorker who was there when they passed their omnibus bill for guns, I feel exactly what you said. Massachusetts has created this patchwork of complexity that is which has brought us to today, which was a fourth guidance letter provided by the Office of Public Safety and Security to kind of explain what they're asking of people.
Oh, no.
So that's 39 points in four different documents combined that they've had to explain in just over a year's time how this law is actually going to work, which A is just unfair to the good law-abiding citizens and residents of Massachusetts, as well as you said, the non-resident people who like to hunt there. It's just too much for any one person to handle, and they're continuing to try to pass more laws as we speak. But this guidance letter is what brings me here today, and just like 39 sections that had to be explained away to folks, and we need to hit on a few of the top ones. First off, you have to register all of your firearms in Massachusetts. They actually have a date for that. That's going to be on October 2nd, 2026. All firearms. That there's no cutouts or carve outs in that. It's all firearms have to be registered. And for a fee, the Firearms Record Bureau can actually confirm if your firearms are registered. But if you've gone through and gotten your forms from an FFL, it should be registered, but they do offer a way to just double check. There's other things in there. You have to get a basic firearms safety certificate for an FID card. It's firearm identification card. That's mandatory. You have to have an FID card for your firearm. You can use the current ones that are being provided by instructors throughout the Commonwealth up until April 2nd, 2026, because part of Chapter 135 stipulates that they will be creating a curriculum, including a live fire portion that kind of mandates what they want to go over, but it hasn't even been created yet. So you have until April 2nd, 2026 to use the current firearm safety certificates. You can't buy black powder unless you have an FID or a license to carry. And some news for our non-resident hunters and youth hunters, they wanted to make sure that people understand you cannot use a semi-automatic rifle or a semi-automatic shotgun or large capacity magazines for hunting, period. No way around that. Now, they do have what's called a temporary license, which is something that you can get signed off, and this comes from Chapter 140. This actually precedes Chapter 135. You can get a temporary license, so you can use a semi-automatic firearm in things like competition. The OPSS also states, that's Office of Public Safety and Security, a person may furnish a minor or person under 21 years of age with a firearm and ammunition for hunting, instruction, recreation, and participation in shooting sports. Now, that being said, they must be under constant supervision from someone possessing the appropriate licenses. And I want to throw a disclaimer out there real quick. Our friends at Massachusetts Gun Owners Action League, GOAL, warns, I quote, "This is just guidance from the state. The Attorney General, district attorneys, nor the courts have weighed in on this." So thank you to GOAL for making sure people know that there's still some legal questions that need to be answered from those in authority, but this guidance letter does come from the Commonwealth, and just helps kind of try to let people figure out what they can and can't do in Massachusetts.
I think it's been one of the biggest ripple effects of this is the citizens and visiting sportsmen and women not knowing what the hell's going on, and secondly, the enforcement mechanism. Your law enforcement officers, your environmental police officers, not really understanding what the hell is going on. You have a situation where politicians in the literal dead of night pass an emergency situation, just cramming all this through the legislative air finger quote process. And it reminds me of one of those big bills on the Hill many years ago. We got to pass it to see what's in it. That terrible line. And that's nonpartisan. That's just a terrible line either way you cut it. Same thing here. Like, we got to pass this to see what's in it, and none of the law enforcement people or mechanisms, they're all sitting there like the rest of us, like, well, what are we supposed to do now? And especially, and as we covered in the past, the non-resident hunter, what is a technical transfer? If I'm sitting at the base of a tree in May trying to hunt turkey, and I hand my firearm off to a youth and I'm there, like, is that a technical transfer? Some people would have said yes. And then you would have to do this whole rigmarole, this process just to let the kid hold the gun and maybe take one or two shots. So, like, the whole thing's ugly, it's cumbersome, and I still feel like we have more questions than we have answers, despite 39 more points of what?
You brought up some good points there. One, on behalf of the CSF, I've been very proud to be able to sit on a lot of these hearings and conversations that have been going on. And this harkens way back, last year, way back a year ago. July of 24 is when the legislature passed this. And in recent hearings, when we had, 60 some bills on one hearing, and a majority of them were to either repeal or take away sections of Chapter 135, one of the proponents for the law tried to explain how this has been a painstaking process that's taken years to get to. I kind of want to challenge that because the way this bill was passed was that they came up with the language at the very end of session of 2024, and no one got to be able to see it when it got voted on. So we didn't even know what the language looked like. The final language was not shown to anybody until the legislature passed it. So I want to kind of challenge that they've been working on this for years. They might have been having meetings regionally in different spots to have this discussion, but the actual language was not approved until that end. And then to the fact where you're talking about an emergency run through, the governor signed an emergency preamble on October 2nd of that year to make this happen immediately. They didn't want the grace period, which would allow the law-abiding citizens to challenge it on a legal basis, or to put it on a ballot like they're trying to do in 2026. This just had a lot of trickery, and the legislative trickery that, it's not, if they thought they were doing the right things to stop gun violence in the Commonwealth, you wouldn't have to hide it from people. You should sing it from the rooftops that you've made the place safer. But it's just made it a confusing quagmire. We're worried about hunters not being able to hunt with the implement of their choice. We're worried about youth not being able to engage at the age that they should, so that they've learned our heritage. This is all to the detriment of conservation funding that will ultimately impact Massachusetts. Earlier this year, I had a conversation with the chief financial officer of Mass Wildlife, their state wildlife agency, and she said 85% of their funding comes from sportsmen and women for the entire department. Now, when Governor Healy has put out a plan going all the way to 2050 for conservation efforts, and you're jeopardizing conservation funding in the Commonwealth, that sounds dangerous to me. I feel like there's a lot of people that have a predictable end to their intentions here, that it's going to be less people buying firearms, less people buying ammunition, if you're even allowed to buy ammunition. People who can't go hunting. I know turkey hunters appreciate their semi-automatic shotguns, duck hunting, lots of waterfowl. That's absolutely a firearm of choice. No longer permitted by non-resident hunters. And you're just destroying, the outdoor economic touch on those, and that's to the detriment of Massachusetts. And I feel bad for them right now.
It's interesting. I think we talked about this the last time. And again, I am certainly not throwing this in the face, but it is an interesting anecdote here that, and I will say we're grateful. But the governor there was happy to sign and issue a proclamation for National Hunt Fish Day, the fourth Sunday in September. And in that, it spells out that proclamation what the contributions you just talked about are in the base day from sportsmen and women, and what that contributes, and how that funding works and helps fund that 85% of that budget for mass wildlife. So it really is kind of a head scratching take that, yes, she would sign this and dedicate the day outlining everything, and then in the same space and time kind of slap slapped it right across the face our sporting community with these restrictions that puts all of that in jeopardy.
So I think that's a challenge to us in the conservation world, CSF, as well as our partners, national and state partners. Education is our biggest tool. Like we have to beat the drum, drag these people out so they can see what we actually do. It's, our neighbors in Connecticut talk about trophy hunting and try to demonize hunting and trapping. it is not a bad thing that we do here. This is habitat rehabilitation. This is habitat management. This is population management. Billions of dollars a year are spent on insurance claims because of deer impacts, things like that. And the white-tailed deer are definitely hitting numbers in certain areas for sure that are endangering just their population threshold. And hunters and trappers and anglers, and then recreational shooters who spend a lot of money to help actually pay for a lot of this conservation. That's the backbone. These are the people that are actually doing the work that scientists from wildlife agencies are saying needs to be done for population management. And I don't know how we can better reach some of these politicians. I think some of them just don't want to hear it. Joke with some friends where they don't like hunting, but they're okay buying meat at the grocery store. Which do you think is more ethically treated at certain points? And I enjoy both wild game as well as what I can buy at the grocery store. But it's kind of hypocritical to say that there's an unethical and cowardly aspect to hunting and trapping, but it's okay to get meat from the grocery store that's on a conveyor belt. And again, I think it's on us to educate our legislators to show we're the ones, we hunters and conservationists, are paying and actually stewards of our environment. And people from Boston, people from New York City, people from Providence, they see concrete all day long. We go out, we're actually in the wild. We actually see what happens to the wildlife. We get it, and somehow we need to transfer that knowledge over to some of our less understanding friends, especially there in Boston.
Even maybe some of that hypocrisy aside, just recognizing that sportsmen and women are the preferred prescription and the preferred method of management. I'm not even asking people to take a philosophical stance on, where you get your protein or anything like that. Just understand that's how this works. American system of conservation funding, how that works, and that everybody in the Bay State, whether they like hunting or not, or they have a philosophical up and down on where they procure their meat, um, is irrelevant because this all works because of our community. And like you said, that part of their education is incredibly important. Um, I was trying to pull up some of the numbers here, but anecdotally, if we go back and look at the numbers for 2024, which is what this year's proclamation would highlight. Um, or no, I have it backwards. This is the year before, but regardless, so some numbers. So we're looking at sportsmen and women generate in the past more than $24 million through the American System of Conservation Funding. Just in Massachusetts alone, um, there's more than 330,000 hunters and anglers that support the state's economy through their spending more than $600 million while engaged in their pursuits. And, as well as this spending supports over 9,000 jobs in Massachusetts and generates $70 million in state and local taxes. So,
Yep.
and this is just the immediate implications, never mind the broader ecotourism dollars from room, board, meals, gas, lotto tickets, cigarettes, beer, whatever the hell they're buying. Um, that's not included here. So it stands to reason there's much more spending going on. So again, I just bring up these examples just to kind of
Now, if you could, Fred, imagine if Massachusetts allowed Sunday hunting. Now you're even talking about more money that could potentially being made and spent in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
100%, and it's a very well placed point. And our friends in Massachusetts um, should be standing up going into the next session here, beating that drum, taking after their southern neighbors there in Connecticut, and at the very minimum, allowing people to hunt on their own property as a property owner um, in the state of Massachusetts. It would, like you said, it would certainly contribute much more. But I think before we get there, or at least in tandem, we got to answer a whole lot more questions as it comes to chapter 135, really get things squared away and hopefully rescind a lot of this garbage because it's just unnecessary. I look at this, Christian, I kind of amount it to like um, critters on the landscape, right? Um, Bobcats, for instance. We in New Hampshire, and I've said this quite a bit on this show, we're not allowed to hunt bobcats. Can't hunt them, can't trap them, nothing. Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts, you can do all the above with bobcats, no problem. So animals, bobcats specifically, do not understand or recognize government fictional lines, right? That's for us. So they cross the boundary completely all the time, right? I kind of think like the same thing, like Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, we all have these great traditions. We trust our citizens. We don't have silly FID or whatever it is. The you got to have be a card carrying government member to have a gun to buy ammunition. We don't require special firearms classes. That's not what the Amendment prescribes. And furthermore, I think a lot of folks, just by their responsible nature, go out and do that on their own. They get good Sunday hunting. Not that Mass Wildlife doesn't provide, because they do a very good job with their curriculum and their education part of Mass Wildlife. Well, I guess what I'm saying is all the states around them seem to trust their citizenry, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work specifically in Massachusetts, which you and I both know is just flat out wrong. It just doesn't. It's not the same. It's not what they're making it out to be.
Yeah, I think we need 3 more sessions of your podcast to kinda go over a lot of this stuff, Fred, but you're absolutely right. I'm not gonna go down the road of natural reciprocity or anything, but a young man did go to jail for a very long time coming from New Hampshire into Massachusetts, with a firearm, and he was treated worse than a criminal. There were people in Boston who were perpetrating violent felonies and being released on the streets, and this young man had to spend time in jail instead, just for the possession of a firearm.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like there something needs to give. It needs to be equal laws for everybody. Again, a violation of possession of a tool not used in violence or not used for crime should not have a worse, punishment than if you actually hurt somebody. Like if you actually use your fists or use something that you're not supposed to have on somebody.
God.
It's unfortunate, and I don't have an answer. I'm not a lawyer, but something's got to give at some point. I think
Well, I mean,
Massachusetts, the law will come down at some point.
it certainly seems symptomatic of what you see going across the country in some of the bigger metropolitan cities, bigger city centers where you're exactly right, where, major crimes, carjackings, thievery, muggings, rape, hell, murders, and I'm not laughing at that. I'm just it's a asinine thing to say, are treated, um, I don't know, like a parking ticket in some of these areas where, to your point, if I went into Massachusetts with my, everyday carry, I would get jacked up. If someone I mean, assuming if someone found out and, told on me kinda thing, or I got pulled over and I had it, right? I would be carted off like I did all of those things I just mentioned. Um,
Make an example of
while
you, right?
yeah, while these people are out there, um pillaging and raping, and this is an exaggeration. These things are happening, and
They
people are
are.
getting slaps on the wrist. Meanwhile, DAs are looking to just put the screws to law-abiding citizens, and the real criminals get to go do whatever the hell they want. So, anyway, way bigger picture for than what this show's intended to, but it kind of drives point home, I think. But anyway, Christian, I thank you very much. You've got a lot of work there to do, and you do a fantastic job as part of our team, and you've really been on all of this, and have been a great resource to our partners in the state and alerting them to things here recently. So, keep up the good work, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Fred. You too, and I'm hoping next time you have me on here, it's for some good news from Massachusetts.
Yeah, no doubt, and I'm sure we'll be connecting at NASC here in the coming days. We're down to days, so here we go. All right, Christian, thanks so much.
Thanks, Fred.
All right, my thanks to Christian for his reporting. Obviously, both of us are very and our staff are passionate about these issues, and when you have things like this getting passed, coming forward, creating access issues, negatively impacting our community, discriminating against our community, um, that's a problem. We got a lot to say about it. So, um, obviously, more follow up when we have it. Let's talk duck stamps. Been in the news here in the last year or so, as we talked about the the electronic duck stamp, the Modernization Act that was passed, and some states locally coming on board with that and updating so that folks can have their duck stamp. But let's check this out here from Connor Barker. And this, we don't assume anybody knows anything that's tuning in. If you're not a duck hunter, you don't know how this program works. This is some good gee whiz info for you. Migratory birds present unique challenges when it comes to management. Since migratory birds do not recognize state and international boundaries, they require a special interwoven framework of both federal and state management. A one of a kind federal funding mechanism exists to support waterfowl management across the continent, and that is the federal duck stamp. Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp Act was enacted 1934 and requires hunters 16 years of age or older to purchase and possess a valid federal duck stamp prior to hunting migratory waterfowl. 98 cents of every dollar from purchases of the federal duck stamp are applied to wetland acquisition and conservation, providing critical habitat conservation for waterfowl and many other game and non-game species. The Duck Stamp Modernization Act that I was just talking about was passed in 2023, allowing hunters to carry an electronic stamp rather than a paper stamp for the entire waterfowl season. Um, for collectors, they still get their actual physical stamp. So that's nice for folks. And Connor details some of that here in the latter part of this article. Species, bag limit, season dates, method of take, and the list goes on when it comes to making sure you were legal to hunt whatever desired species you wish to pursue in any given state. Hunting waterfowl is no different. However, for over 90 years, there has been at least one consistent item for waterfowlers, and that is the federal duck stamp that must be purchased before engaging in waterfowl hunting or migratory birds, regardless of what state you are in. Federal duck stamps are extremely lean when it comes to the use of those funds for on the ground conservation, with 98 cents of every dollar applied directly to wetlands conservation. While wetlands provide critical habitat for waterfowl, they are also home to countless other game and non game species. Every season, hunters around the country flock to lands paid for by and managed by dollars collected from the sale of federal duck stamp. An example, national wildlife refuges across the country are funded in part through federal duck stamp dollars. Additionally, waterfowl production areas, mostly in the prairie pothole region of the North and South Dakotas, for example, provide prime hunting access for America's sportsmen and women and are paid for and managed by the federal duck stamp funds. Hunters aren't the only user group that benefit from the federal duck stamp. Wildlife photographers, bird watchers, hikers, and virtually anyone who enjoys America's wild places all have benefited from the wildly successful federal duck stamp program. If you're planning to visit our National Wildlife Refuge in your area that they charge a fee to get into, a purchase of a federal duck stamp will act as your ticket in, get you free entry into those refuges. Additionally, the extremely competitive art contest attracts artists from around the world to try their hand at being the face of next year's federal duck stamp that will be viewed by millions of hunters, conservationists, artists, and stamp collectors. As many duck seasons are underway or set to begin in the coming weeks, don't forget to purchase your duck stamp before heading afield. So, little public service announcement there and reminder. The contest there amongst the artists, it is very competitive. It is a great tradition, and that was one of the selling points when it came to the duck stamp points of interest was that that contest would continue and that there would still be physical stamps because of that long standing tradition and all that comes with it. So there you go. Duck stamps can be purchased online. Like I said, you get that duck stamp, get the physical one, or you go to a post office where they sell stamps as long as they have them in stock. This from John Colclaser. CSF supports forest restoration project on the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. The proposed silviculture treatments will improve forest structure diversity across the landscape, which is critical to increasing forest resiliency to wildfire and other forest health threats. Healthy forests provide habitat for wildlife and abundant water for fish in communities and access for outdoor recreation. On November 21st, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation submitted a letter in support of the Snowy Butte Landscape Restoration Project on the High Cascade Ranger District of the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest in Oregon. The Snow Butte Landscape Restoration Project will restore forest and watershed health, reduce wildfire risk, and improve fish and wildlife habitat. CSF is a strong proponent of actively managing forests, including harvesting timber to improve forest health and wildlife habitat, increase access and opportunity for hunters and anglers, and support local forest based economies. In October, the U.S. Forest Service released the environmental assessment for the Snow Butte Landscape Restoration Project in southern Oregon. As proposed, the project will treat 27,000 acres of the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest to move the project area towards the desired conditions in the forest plan by increasing forest resiliency to wildfire and other disturbances. Specifically, commercial and non commercial things will reduce fuel loads, enhance vertical and horizontal heterogeneity, and reduce competition to improve forest health and prevent severe wildfires. Additionally, the project will restore almost 300 acres of meadow by removing encroaching trees, shrubs to provide early successional habitat for wildlife, restore 81 acres of hardwoods, restore forest composition along riparian areas where the fire has been excluded, replace culverts to improve fish passage and watershed health, and use prescribed fire to reduce wildfire risk and increase vegetative diversity. In Congress, CSF supports the Fix Our Forest Act, which would increase the resiliency of federal forests to severe wildfires and other forest health threats by streamlining National Environmental Policy Act procedures and expanding collaborative tools to increase the pace and scale of forest restoration work. The Senate Committee on Ag, Nutrition, and Forestry advanced Senate 1462 on an 18-5 vote in October, and the House passed H.R. 471 on a 279 to 141 vote in January. While the legislation is not a panacea for federal land management challenges, it is a step in the right direction to address forest health, wildlife habitat needs on public lands. With the broad bipartisan support that both bills receive, CSF is optimistic that the Senate will take up Senate 1462 early next year before the 2026 wildfire season. CSF is thankful for the U.S. Forest Service's proactive management of federal forests and looks forward to the project's implementations to improve forest and watershed health, reduce wildfire risk for nearby communities, and support Oregon's outdoor sporting traditions that depend on healthy forests. We touched on CWD here recently. This regional CWD update coming out of the Southwest from Kaylee Mortensen. By now, we know what CWD is here in this audience. It's a terrible brain disease. These critters, these ungulates, are highly susceptible to. As it relates to the Southwest, chronic wasting disease has been detected in 36 states, including California, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. So far, it remains undetected in Arizona, despite confirmed cases in neighboring states. And the Arizona Game and Fish Department is encouraging hunters to bring the head of their harvested animal in to any department offices statewide to test for CWD. Arizona Game and Fish Department has been testing for the presence of CWD in Arizona since 1998, and the state remains one of the few where the disease has not yet been detected despite its presence on the bordering states. The state agency encourages hunters to bring the head of their harvested animal into the department office for CWD sampling. This fall, they have already tested more than 600 deer and elk and hope to sample at least 1,500 animals this season. Hunters returning to Arizona with harvested deer or elk from another state are urged to not illegally import cervid carcasses or parts containing brain or spinal tissue. Hunters are also asked to contact the department if they see an animal that looks sick. Some of those signs, again, we've gone over 'em, but just for maybe folks new to it, some of those signs may include progressive weight loss, stumbling, tremors, lack of coordination, blank facial expressions, excessive salivation and drooling, loss of appetite, excessive thirst and urination, listlessness, abnormal head posturing, and drooping ears. Some of those you would have to observe a critter for a consistent amount of time, but a lot of those other ones um, probably stand out to you. So if you see any of that going on, that's important to alert officials uh, so they can start testing right away and hopefully head anything off. But another public service announcement on CWD. And seriously, however you feel about CWD, if your state does not have it, adhere to what your officials are asking of you, not to bring in, that brain and spinal material, and have your meat deboned, whatever the prescription is to import that stuff into your state. You don't want to screw around with this stuff. 14 states that don't have it, including Arizona, including some of the New England states here. I'd like to keep it that way. It's one thing for biologists to manage the herd once it's established. It also takes resources that are needed elsewhere, especially some of these more cash-strapped departments where now we have to start finding the financial resources to implement testing programs, collection sites at all. Bottom line, if you don't have it in your state, keep it that way and listen to what the officials, your state agency are saying and adhere to it strictly. You do not want to have this stuff coming into your state. Fisheries update from Chris Horton. Three CSF supported fishing and fisheries conservation bills, two of which are top priorities, were recently heard in the House Committee on Natural Resources, um, Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Oceans, providing the opportunity to move the bills for full House consideration prior to adjournment of the first session of the 119th. Last Wednesday, the House Committee on Natural Resources Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries held a legislative hearing on three bills that look to vastly improve recreational catch data, establish a new fisheries commission for Mississippi River Basin, and stem illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing by foreign vessels. CSF submitted written testimony for the record in support of the three bills before the subcommittee. Uh, the first one, Resolution 5699, the Fisheries Data Modernization and Accuracy Act of 2025, will address the fundamental shortcoming of federal marine fisheries management, which is the ability to obtain reliable recreational catch estimates. The bill seeks to facilitate the establishment of or improvement of more efficient and accurate state-based data collection systems that can effectively supplement or replace MRIP. For coastal states unable to develop their own data collection programs, the bill would establish a mechanism for scientific review of MRIP estimates and methodologies when the quality of recreational catch data fails to meet NOAA's own data standards. 1514, the Mississippi River Basin Fishery Commission Act of 2025, would establish a much needed and long overdue fisheries commission under the Department of the Interior to coordinate interjurisdictional fishery resources and management across 31 states and tribes in the Mississippi River Basin. The commission would help to ensure that resources to combat invasive species and improve fish habitat are focused where they are needed the most. And finally, 3756, the Fighting Foreign Illegal Seafood Harvests Act of 2025, or FISH Act, seeks to address the continued challenge of illegal, unreported, and unregulated commercial fishing that significantly threatens local and global fish stocks. The bill would facilitate the creation of a blacklist of foreign fishing vessels suspected of illegal fishing, prohibit their entry to U.S. ports, and encourage sanctions on listed vessels by their countries. A recording of the hearing can be found at the in article link. CSF looks forward to working with each of the bill's sponsors as they move the process forward to become law. Yeah, and as a reminder, as always, you guys can go and are encouraged to go to congressionalsportsman.org to sign up for the free EPUB of the Sportsman's Voice. Get that every Monday or Tuesday if there's a holiday. I will say in coming weeks, we are, because of holidays, not going to run our TSV and thus will not have this audio complement to the EPUB. So we'll keep updating as that comes. So next week, um, there will be no roundup or EPUB. So well, let's wrap it up here. In the Great Plains with Jake Gould talking fishing for the fall. With the cooler temperatures in the water, anglers are provided with a great opportunity to catch fish that thrive in cooler water, like trout and muskie. Throughout the Great Plains region, many state fish and wildlife agencies are stocking lakes, streams, and rivers with trout. In Iowa, the fall trout spawn is in full swing, and thanks to continuous conservation efforts, brown trout populations are self sustaining and breeding naturally. Anglers may have the opportunity to change their approach as the colder water may change fish behavior. The fall season offers sportsmen and women plenty of opportunities to hit the field and enjoy those time honored tradition. While there are several great hunting seasons open during the fall, it is also a great time for anglers to hit the lakes and rivers before they freeze over. Fall water temperatures offer great opportunities for anglers to target cold water fish such as trout. In Iowa, the Department of Natural Resources is continuing their efforts to collect rainbow trout eggs so that they can continue to stock streams in the Hawkeye State. This fall, they are not collecting brown trout eggs as they are now a self sustaining, naturally reproducing population. Though the continued conservation efforts of the DNR, um, nearly all public trout streams contain brown trout. These conservation efforts not only help fish populations, but also provide anglers with more opportunities to catch different fish in different bodies of water. Whether anglers are fishing from a boat or the bank, they may have to switch from their summer approach to catch fish that may be behaving differently due to the colder water temperatures. As the water temps lower, fish tend to change their feeding behaviors. Like many other animals, fish will likely be trying to fatten up for the winter, leading them to be more aggressive. However, anglers may have to slow their bait presentation down as the fish may be slower to react. Yeah, and more opportunities abound as that water turns to hard water, especially in our northern tier states where ice fishing is another long-standing tradition in many of these states. Can still catch those cold water species, and like Jake alluded to, changing up your tactics. But certainly some of those Midwestern states have traditions of musky spearing. Well, I think any of the pike family be pretty cool to try out. Plenty of ice fishing to be had with lake trout, brown trout, any of the cold water species there. Favorite targets, whether you're live lining with traps or you're actively jigging using sonar technology or just line jigging. Um, Lots of fun to be had and memories to be made in the fall and winter angling pursuits. All right, so that's it. Not a lot of editorializing or commentary on this week's items. More gee whiz and PSAs for you um, as we roll into the back. Well, we are more than the back half. We got like a month and some change left here in the year. So we are working diligently with our state legislative sportsmen's caucuses, working on our priority items for the kickoff of 2026. So certainly after the holidays, more intense reporting um, will be coming to you. But for now, stay safe out there wherever you're at, whether you're fishing in those cold water fisheries or you're still out there like me trying to fill some deer tags. Opportunity abounds. The weather's been seemingly great across the country. A lot of people are experiencing colder than usual temps, especially as we're rolling through the Thanksgiving holiday. So that gets deer up and moving or gets ducks off the water and moving. Um, it's a fun time of year. So enjoy the time with family and friends. Have a blessed Thanksgiving. Enjoy all the wild game that may be making its way to your family table. The pies, the music, the eggnog, everything that comes with it. I know I will be sampling many delicious desserts because that's where my taste buds lie. I have the palate of a 5-year-old. So enjoy. We'll catch up with you guys when we come back, and we'll have more conservation news from around the nation for you. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. Again, happy Thanksgiving. We're going into the Christmas season, so lots of fun to be had. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Your charitable giving stack just called, and it wants a glow up. Wren Technology is used by the top institutions in the country for donor-advised funds. They're the fastest growing giving vehicle for a reason. Wren just makes giving a lot less taxing. Learn more at RENINC.com.